Welcome to the Digital DJ Tips podcast, and this edition is an inside track edition, which means we've got 3 topics in the world of DJing to talk about. We talked in this recording about DJ software. What's the problem with it? Well, a few, as it turns out. We talked about DJing success. How do we define it now that DJing as a hobby and a career has well and truly grown up? And we talked about DJing with old-fashioned 7-inch singles, something I've been doing recently, and I've learned a few lessons along the way. As ever, the recording you're about to hear was recorded with our students present, so they get to ask questions. And if you would like to ask a question or give feedback on one of these shows, then go and have a look at our courses page at digitaldjtips.com/courses. We have DJ courses for everyone there. As soon as you sign up to any of them, you are invited to our student group where all of this happens, and so you can take part. As ever though, if you enjoy the podcast itself, do give us a 5-star rating on your particular platform, please. It really does help us to spread the word far and wide. And finally, there are no commercials, no adverts, and no sponsors in this podcast. It is paid for completely by our awesome students. Let's get going then with today's Inside Track. Our first topic today is redefining DJing success. So the way we introduced this when we asked the community to get involved and give feedback was like this: drugs, groupies, private jets, insomnia, amnesia, hearing loss, mental breakdown. It sounds like the film It's All Gone Pete Tong, doesn't it? Has anyone seen that film? Say you're a DJ without saying you're a DJ, right? You know, what I just said is kind of the classic cliche definition of DJing, right, in popular culture. Well, we're here to say no. As much fun as all that stuff might be for about 6 months when you're 21 years old, there's no way that that lifestyle I just described could be defined in any way other than live fast, die young. And look, DJing is more than live fast, die young, isn't it? Nowadays, DJing has grown up. You walk past any music shop window and alongside the drums and saxophones and bass guitars and clarinets and all the other instruments, tucked in there somewhere will be a mixer or some decks or a DJ controller. And so the point is that DJing has grown up. It's now done by all ages, by all kinds of people, and for all kinds of reasons. So DJing success cannot be defined by what the last generation defined it by. We need to have a better definition of success as a DJ. So it's time for a grown-up way of looking at this. And I've got one to propose. So let's talk about it. Now, because we have the Digital DJ Tips community on this live recording, I really do encourage you to share, because I think your input is going to be just as useful as what I've got here. However, here's what I've got. Now, this was inspired by looking at a report by a couple of companies who got together to talk about what success can mean for musicians. And I found it very interesting. It was by a company called Amuse and by the Media organization. And so I kind of read that and it inspired me to think about how our audience and our students here at the Digital DJ Tips School define their success. And we actually asked our students to give us the way they DJ and why they think it's worth talking about, because we were looking for 101 ways to succeed as a DJ in 2024, and we're doing very well on that content. We've got a huge amount of input from you guys and girls, which is going to inform some really interesting content that we'll be creating for the community later on this year. However, it has kind of like all circled back to this: how do you define success as a DJ? So I've got a 5-step process for success, for defining success, and for kind of checking in with yourself to see if you're on the right path in your DJing journey, whatever age you are, whatever kind of DJing you're doing, and whatever you ultimately want to get out of this hobby. So let's get going on the 5 things. So they are: first, to succeed as a DJ, you need the right environment, acceptance from others, proof that you're improving, a focus on the future, and to leave a legacy behind. These are the 5 things that I think we should all be working at if DJing is our hobby or even our career. Creating the right environment for success, getting acceptance from others, getting proof of our own improvement, having a focus on the future, and leaving a legacy. So let's talk a little bit more about each of those. The first one is the right environment. This is creating the conditions to succeed. And I think this one is so important. And DJs do not give themselves the credit for actually managing to achieve this in their lives. So here's what I mean. The first thing is creating enough time to DJ, because we're all busy. So if you can carve out time in your life, if you give up something else, because we can't make time, there's only 24 hours in the day, so we have to take time from something else, right? If you can carve out the time, it's almost like watering the plant so that it gets to flourish, right? Time is one of the things that you need for your DJing career or hobby to flourish. If you can find that time, you're already succeeding, because you're taking time away from something else. And it's very, very healthy. There's all kinds of things that come back to you well when you do this. So for instance, if you take time away from watching Netflix, now you're going from being a passive taker of what culture can give you to being someone who's giving back to culture, because you're DJing. You're creating something to give back rather than just taking something in as a passive consumer. So if you take time as an example from just watching TV or whatever, and you give it to your DJing hobby, you're becoming a better person. You're succeeding, in my view. But also, if you take time away from shopping, from mindlessly buying stuff, we've all got enough stuff, and you say, no, I'm going to create instead, then look, DJing is also a healthy thing. So look, I don't think people give themselves enough credit for just making the time for DJing and taking it away from maybe less healthy pursuits. But also, of course, the right environment for DJing, for succeeding as a DJ, might mean money. So what I mean by this is, although DJing is a creative thing, it's an artistic thing, you still need money to do it. You still need to buy gear, you still need to buy music, you still need to invest some amount of funds into your DJing. So if you can get enough paid DJing work to cover your hobby, if you like, in other words, if you can make your DJing pay for itself, and a lot of DJs, that is their starting point. If you get to that point, so you've made the time for your DJing and it's paying for itself, you are succeeding, because you've created the right environment for your DJing, both financially and as far as time goes. You know, time and money are, as we know, very linked. So the first of my 5 measures of success is the right environment, both getting the time for DJing and getting the money. And by the way, I don't mean like, okay, I can't afford to DJ because I haven't got enough money. A lot of people, of course, can't. A lot of people struggle. But even if you're relatively affluent, you're still probably going to have to justify the money and time you spend on your DJing to either yourself or to those around you. And making a little bit of money from that DJing can be a really good way of doing that. Of course it can. So that's my first definition of success, really. Have you created the right environment? And if you have, pat yourself on the back. So my second definition of DJ success is getting acceptance from other people. Now, these other people could be your clients, the people you're DJing for. You know, we like this DJ, they're good, we're going to book them again. It's a lovely feeling. It could be your family and friends who are kind of allowing you the time and who are approving of what you're doing. We all want the approval of the people closest to us, right? It could be other DJs. Now, there is a trap in looking for approval from other DJs, because whether it's at a gig where all they really want to do is be DJing when you're not, and so they're not going to compliment you there, or whether it is playing to the other DJs in the room rather than playing to the audience. So there is a trap in chasing the acceptance of other DJs, because the trap is in chasing that acceptance over the acceptance of your audience. Ultimately, as a DJ, the recognition we want, the acceptance we want, is from the people we're playing to. So are they enjoying themselves? So if you have got happy clients, if your audience, wherever you DJ, whether there's 5 of them or 50 of them or 50,000 of them, enjoy what you're doing, and your family and friends are approving, and then maybe along the way a few DJs will actually, maybe grudgingly, give you a nod too. If you're getting this acceptance, then you're doing well. You are succeeding. And again, you deserve to give yourself a pat on the back. So look at your DJing life. Is this happening for you? If you're giving yourself a hard time over where you are in your DJing, but actually everyone around you is enjoying what you do, then you're succeeding. So don't beat yourself up over that. My third definition of success in DJing is you're looking for proof that you're improving. I think this is something that DJs often beat themselves up over. How do I know I'm getting better? How do I know that I'm any good at this? How do I know this is worth putting my time and effort into? We hear it a lot here at the school, of course, because in our courses, we teach people often from the very beginning of their career, and they just, at the beginning of learning something, you don't know what you don't know. So you have really no way of knowing if you're improving, right? So, there's a few ways of knowing that you're improving. Firstly, how does what you're doing sound? As long as you're recording what you're doing and listening back to it, you're going to get a reasonable idea about what it sounds like, right? The second thing is how it feels. Is it getting easier? The stages of learning you can look at 4 stages of learning. First, you don't know what you don't know. In other words, hey, I want to be a DJ. I've got no idea what's involved. Next, you do know what you don't know. In other words, you figured out the steps, but you haven't taken many of them. The next 2 stages are you kind of know it, but it's hard to do. In other words, there's a lot of effort in doing it. Think about playing the guitar where you figured out a couple of chords, but they never come easy. Think about trying to do a manual beat mix and you do 1 in 50, right? But the third stage is when it's becoming effortless, right? The muscle memory is kicking in, so on. So how does it feel? You know you're improving when doing things that actually felt hard are now starting to feel easier. You know you're improving when you're figuring out what you need to do next. So all of these things are showing you that you're succeeding over and on top of what it actually sounds like, which of course is easy to check as long as you're recording. And you can also look at your improvement by just asking yourself, what have I learned recently? What do I know? So actively chasing knowledge is a good way of improving. Of course, we're a DJ school, we're here to teach you, but it doesn't have to come from us. It can come from simply the instruction manuals that came with your gear, or talking to other DJs, or watching YouTube videos, or reading books, or so on. But improving your knowledge and looking back and saying, what have I learned, is a good way of seeing that you're improving. But however you do it, having proof that you're improving is a good way of giving yourself proof that you're succeeding, because if you're getting better at something, by definition, success is getting closer. The fourth thing is a focus on the future. Now in DJing, this kind of comes right back to what I said at the beginning, which is, DJing, traditionally the cliches of DJing, the sex and drugs and rock and roll approach to am I successful? Well, I can't remember the last 6 months of my life. I've got an awful lot of money. I'm flying around on a private jet and my mental health is suffering. I must be a success. That's short-termism, right? And as we already discussed, DJing is no longer about short-termism. It's something that a lot of us do throughout our lives. Once a DJ, always a DJ, I always say. So a focus on the future is really important. DJing itself is developing. DJing itself, we have an internal phrase here at Digital DJ Tips. Whenever anything big happens, like stems or, the switch to digital in the first place, or AI, DJing is dead. Long live DJing, right? Because look, DJing does change, but it kind of doesn't at the same time. It's still about playing the right music for the people in front of you right now. But all around that phrase, playing the right music for the people in front of you right now, pretty much everything's changing. So look, are you developing with DJing, or are you getting stuck? Because if you're getting stuck, it's anti-success. You need to have a stance on where you stand with the developments in DJ. Now, that doesn't mean you need to be a quick mixing DJ who's using AI for every transition and only playing music that's come out in the last 6 minutes. Unless that's what you want to be. But it does mean having a stance on the developments in DJing. So how are you keeping up with the developments in DJing? Which ones are you embracing? Which ones are you questioning? Which ones are you rejecting, and why? And over time, of course, DJing will change more and more. And so this is something that's never done. Also, it's about adding new or adjacent skills to your DJing hobby. So as a DJ, it became more and more important in the years gone past to also be a DJ producer, because DJs who produced music could then get to play gigs that DJs who couldn't play. Now, you might not want that, but you might want that. And producing music can be a great adjacent thing to learn. just like playing musical instruments can be an adjacent thing to learn. But there's a lot of DJing adjacent things which can give a lot of joy to you as well. A lot of people end up doing a day job in something that's adjacent to DJing. A lot of people are in jobs in DJing technology or in companies that cross over with DJing, like the subscription music service companies, making playlists for them, or working for anyone where there's a crossover. In other words, at work, there's going to be quite a few people who DJ. Now, I'm not saying that you have to work in DJing, but what I am saying is that if you want a future focus, if you want to have a life where DJing is important to you all the way through it, what are you going to add to your DJing to keep you interested? I could use myself as an example here. I was a professional full-time DJ for about 15 years. That's all I did. But as that lost its shine for me, I discovered blogging, I discovered teaching, and I therefore have developed a life where I'm fully involved in DJing. I know people on this very recording who are making software for DJs, just to give you another example. And I could open my phone contact book and go through, and every fifth person I can pull out is a DJ who's also doing something else involved. So what can you add to your DJing? What twists and turns can come along the way to help you? And so what is your future focus? How are you going to adapt your DJing over a lifestyle to keep yourself, over a lifetime to keep yourself relevant, really? So look, if you've done that already, if DJing is something that has changed along with you, then you are winning because you are keeping up. I was talking to a DJ today who joined our all-new complete DJ course, which is a DJ course that we've just launched to go alongside the new version of our book, Rock the Dance Floor. And he said, I never thought I'd return to DJing. He said, I have run a multi-operator mobile DJ company for many, many years. I had 20 DJs. We were doing about 200 gigs a year. I had utter burnout and I just walked away from it all. But it never left me, and now I'm back. But now I want to learn on my own terms to do a very different kind of DJing. And I think that's a great example of longevity. Sometimes we step away only to step back. And so what are you doing to have a future focus in your DJing? When I started DJing, as I said at the beginning of kind of a 15-year career of being really deep in club DJing, I didn't think it would last more than a summer. I just thought this was something that was great fun, but it couldn't last. There was no career path. There was nothing that suggested to me that I would still be doing it 15 years later. I wish I'd had that, because I would have made different decisions then if I'd have known that was going to be the case. And the fifth thing, if we're going to redefine DJing success, I have, is what are you doing about leaving a legacy? When we've made courses with people like Jazzy Jeff and Laidback Luke, not so much James Hype, who is a little bit earlier in his DJing career, just to quote some of our tutors, but certainly Jeff and Luke, they've been very clear to us at the beginning of the process that part of the reason they wanted to make DJ courses with us was to leave a legacy, was to show the world how they think it should be done. Now, that's only one way of leaving a legacy. A much more obvious way of us hobby DJs leaving a legacy is turning the somewhat ephemeral, throwaway world of DJing. We do it live and then it's gone, right? Turning that into something that can be referred back to and can be kept. So making DJ mixes, maybe video performances, maybe having video on demand versions of live streams we've done and so on. What are you doing that builds up a body of work that you can look back on and that will outlive you? I think it's really important to think about this. And it doesn't even have to be music. It can be other content. Again, I can draw on my own experiences. I'm leaving a lot of training. We've created thousands and thousands of videos and books and courses and so on to help DJs. And so my legacy is I've done a lot more of that than I've done of DJing really at this point in my life, because I've been a DJ tutor for longer than I was a professional DJ now. But nonetheless, I also have a Mixcloud account full of mixes that I've done. So what are you doing to create a legacy, really, I think is an important thing to ask. And of course, legacy doesn't have to be things that you've made. It can be things you've done for other people. So you could be mentoring the next generation of DJs. You could be passing on your knowledge through teaching, as I do, both locally or online or whatever. But I think leaving a legacy is important. So let's just go through those again, and then I'm going to come back to your comments on this. Have you created the right environment, both carved out the time and found the money for doing this, maybe made it self-sustainable by making a bit of money from it? Are you getting the acceptance of others? That can be a good nod that you're succeeding, whether that's other DJs or clients or family or friends, and of course your audience. Have you got proof that you're improving? Is it feeling easier? Is it sounding better? Are you clearly learning more stuff all the time? And if not, what can you do to address that? Have you got a focus on the future? Are you thinking long term? Are you adding adjacent skills? Are you adding a few twists and turns along the way? Are you doing stuff which means that you're clearly developing in your DJing in that way? And are you thinking about leaving a legacy? Have you got proof that you were there, kind of thing? And are you leaving the DJ world in a better place than it was when you found it? So if you're doing any or all of those things, however successful you are, however much money you make from this, however big your audience is on Instagram or whatever, I would argue that you are indeed succeeding. So that's my piece on this. And because we're live, I've got lots of comments coming in from our audience about their definitions of success. So over to you, Digital DJ Tips crew. So Alex says, you don't know how much I needed to hear this. We can all be our own worst critics sometimes, can't we just? Michael says, improving also equals increasing your average gig revenue year on year. Yep. Increasing referrals from other sources, from specific sources. Yeah. And your overall number of gigs per year that you've got scheduled going up. Of course, just like going to the gym to get stronger, there's going to be a point where you can't get any stronger. There's going to be a point where you can't earn any more or fit in more gigs. So when you reach that point, how do you continue to define success, Michael? Just a little question for you there. Benedict says, success for me is being able to DJ effortlessly on pro gear since I just have a controller at home, and that's my clear mindset for the future. Oh, I like that, Benedict. So you're setting a goal to come next, which is effortless DJing on pro gear. You know, I think one of the tricks to not getting old is having enough to look forward to. I think a definition of being old is when you're looking back and not forward, isn't it? So always having something to look forward to, I agree. Mixmaster G says, I stopped active DJing, but I now make software for DJs and I try to help wherever I can. And the Ruckus says directly to Mixmaster G, we greatly appreciate that. The legacy for me is helping fellow DJs make their first steps into DJing. And I do that through a night I run called Open Decks FC, which is vinyl only. We're talking about vinyl only DJing in a little while. Thanks for that, Benedict. And Kesha says, my definition of success has always been that I make mistakes when mixing, but once I work through it, I get it right. My mixes are getting better and I can really hear the difference from a few years ago. And Mike says, I make mixes on Mixcloud, and due to my mental health, I love the feedback I get from the Mixcloud community. Yeah, of course, success doesn't have to be gigs nowadays, does it? It can be making mixes for Mixcloud, it can be live streaming, and so on. So thank you very much, students, for your feedback on that topic. I want to move on to our next topic now on Inside Track. And if you are listening to the podcast version of this and you'd like to be involved and ask a question or give some feedback, then as long as you are a Digital DJ Tips student, you get the option to do that by going into your student live show inside Student Hub, which is the student group. If you're not a Digital DJ Tips student, hey, go take a look at our courses at digitaldjtips.com/courses. Every single person on every single course gets invited to all of these. That would be the way to get involved. Now I want to talk about something a little bit different. This is called, I've called this the strange world of DJ software, and it's perplexing me more and more. DJ software at the moment, it really is. Hence we're talking about this. Not only that, and more importantly, it's perplexing our students here at the school more and more. I'm getting a lot of people getting very confused about DJ software as the time goes on. So this is about addressing that. I've kind of got some thoughts on how we got to where we are and what might happen next. So I think in order to understand where we are with DJ software, which is loads of competing platforms which work to a lesser or greater degree with all kinds of DJ hardware, and a lot of confusion and also a lot of frustration among users that sometimes DJ software isn't actually very good, I think we need to go right back to the beginning and look at the two strands of DJing, how they were just after the turn of the century, in the early to mid 2000s. So we were at a time then when all pro DJs were switching or had switched from playing vinyl, which you can't get more simple than 2 turntables and an analog mixer, to playing on CD players, where they were starting to burn their own music at home on software and plug it into CD players. And so the whole way of getting music was changing. Then DJing was actually quite similar, because the CD players were made to feel like turntables, but you were putting in CDs rather than using records. That's what the pros were doing. Now, at the same time, the hobby world of DJing was beginning to take off, where clever companies were writing software to allow people to not only play, but to manipulate the MP3s that were being ushered in by iPods and by Napster. You know, MP3s were a new way of getting music digitally at that time. There were lots of music formats competing, and MP3 was starting to dominate. And people were writing software. There was a company that came before Virtual DJ called Atomics, which is now the name of the company that owns Virtual DJ, which is one of the DJ platforms. And Atomics DJ was a very simple, I remember it was bright blue piece of software where you could mix 2 MP3s together. And it's like, oh my days, this is unbelievable. We were sat there on our, Windows XP Sony Vaio PCs, using the space bar and using the little arrow keys to move crossfaders and things. And it was incredible. Look, I'm mixing in my computer. And then we were adding sound cards so we could use our headphones as well. And it was like, I've got my whole turntable set up here, and the music's all free because I'm getting it on Napster. It's like, wow. So you can see how hobby DJing took off with software, right? But meanwhile, alongside that, we had pro DJs whose world had been flipped by going from vinyl to CDs. But these two worlds were very, very, very separate. But what happened next is when it started to get both interesting and confusing. So what happened next was that the CD players that pro DJs were using started to work with USB drives that didn't need you to actually insert a CD. Of course, nowadays, you don't have a CD slot in any pro player. It's all USB and indeed cloud, but we're going ahead of ourselves. And so at this point, we had DJs, pro DJs, preparing their music on USBs, often just dragging a folder of songs and plugging it in. But what happened very quickly was that a lot of DJs were using the early versions of software on your computer that allowed you to do a better job of preparing that USB drive. You could make playlists, and you could start to analyze that music so that you had looping and cue points and other things that began to creep in. And so the DJ gear in the pro DJ booth was starting to get a few of the features that were already in the software that was very separate, that hobby DJs were using. And at the same time, the hobby DJs were starting to get gear made for them. Little boxes that plugged in and let you play, often literally on little boxes that you were crouched over using your fingers to control, that you could play kind of Honey, I Shrunk the DJ gear style DJ sets. And so these two worlds were starting to get closer. And what happened next was that the DJ gear in pro DJ booths started to work with the DJ software that was getting better and better and better on laptops. Now at this point, it gets both cool, but also very confusing, especially when the big, chunky, costing thousands pieces of DJ equipment arrived that could work with the USB drives and could also work with the laptops. You choose, right? That's where we are nowadays, basically. Because the pro DJ gear got more and more of the features without the laptop being there that laptop DJs are used to. And nowadays, apart from real-time stems, most standalone gear at the top end of the market can do pretty much all the things that software can do. And at the same time, the software and the controllers got very, 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 very good. It felt like using, in inverted commas, normal DJ gear. And indeed, the gear became the same because you can use the same equipment now, whether you want to use a laptop or whether you want to use it standalone. So that's where we've reached now. That's all good, right? Progress is good. That's amazing. Everyone's got access to all this cool stuff. But it's almost left a trail of weirdness in the software market. Let's talk a bit about that now before I talk about where I think it could all go and a few things that could happen to kind of get us out of this weird place that we find us in now. At the moment, there's one dominant hardware company. It's Pioneer DJ / Alpha Theta. That is it. They dominate the market to the point where it is almost a joke. It's like 70-80% dominance in hardware, and more than half the market in software is that one company right now. And so you've got one dominant hardware company, but you've got a minimum of 5 major software companies: Traktor, Serato, Rekordbox, DJ Pro, Engine DJ, and Virtual DJ. I've just named 6. There we go. I didn't even try. So although there's one dominant hardware company, there is one other pretty big player. And that big player, they're called In Music, actually controls a lot of brands that you might think weren't connected, like Rain and Newmark and Den and DJ. Right? You might not have known that. They're all controlled by the same company. So you've got your Pioneer DJ and Alpha Theta, that's all one company. And you've got other hardware, which only takes up 20 or 30% of the market. Really, they're small compared to Pioneer DJ, but they're a lot bigger than everyone else, that controls Newmark, Rain, and Den and DJ. They haven't got their own software. This is where it gets really weird. They have a software platform that's half developed that can do kind of half of what the best DJ software can do. It can help you prepare your music to play on their version of Pro Gear, but they haven't got their own laptop DJ software. You can't plug a laptop into one of their units and use their software, even though they make all this hardware. Really weird situation to be in. So that is a strange environment. There's too many software companies. And because DJing is quite a small world, we might think it's everything, but it's actually quite a small world. A lot of the software companies haven't got the research and development behind them to really be best in class. So a lot of this software lags behind. You know, whenever the operating systems get updated, it takes them a year to update their software. You open the software and there's silly little niggles in the library or the resolutions or the speed or getting it ready to work with the new M silicon Apple computers. You know, this is the stuff that the big photography and video and production platforms, they get right immediately. You know, they're all slick, they're all cool, they're all amazing. But DJ software tends to lag behind. Not all of it, but it's got a kind of boutique, village, company kind of feel to it that doesn't feel truly world class. In my view, a lot of it has anyway. Not all of it, some of it's very good, but it's patchy. And I think it's because it's a small world. But I think the biggest issue, you know, one issue is there's just too many software companies. Another issue is the software is a little bit laggy when it comes to keeping up to date, and it is a little bit backwards when it comes to best practices. It's really confusing for the end user. This is what we see as a DJ school. The end users do not know what to make of this. And quite rightfully, they don't know what platform to go for. They don't know whether they've made the right choice. They don't know whether they should update and pay for the version of the free software that came with their controller. They don't know which controller to buy because they don't understand that there's a difference between hardware and software, etc. I think it's really clear that software and hardware needs very tight integration. It's a little bit Wild West to say they don't live together nowadays. You know, your piece of hardware is integral to whatever software works with it, whether it's preparing the music or using it on a laptop, right? So my first thought is that. So you've got Pioneer DJ's stuff, Alpha Theta's stuff, all one company, all one set of gear. One of them is just dying out, Pioneer DJ, and Alpha Theta as a brand is taking over. That's all one company, right? That's what 80% of the market, 70-80% of the market is. You've got their gear, and their platform is Rekordbox. You've then got, to give you a few more examples, Traktor, which is owned by Native Instruments, which is quite a small player nowadays, but still about 10% of the market, Traktor. And they've got their own software, Traktor. All good so far. You've got the in-music brands I just talked about, Rain, Denon, Newmark. And they've got a software platform called Engine DJ, but it doesn't power all that gear. A lot of that gear uses Serato, which is something we're going to talk about in a minute. I think we need to come back and talk about that. You've got Algorithm, who make a piece of software called DJ Pro. Now that works very well with Apple computing hardware, and arguably the future for that might be AR. It might be Apple's Vision Pro because it's integrated and it works really well with that. But other than that, DJ's floating around without its own hardware platform. So I think we're going to see DJ and Apple meld. I wouldn't be surprised if they buy DJ, if Apple buys DJ or Algorithm. And then you've got virtual DJ, which is a bit of a wild card. It's a bit of a magpie. It kind of works with everything, but they're so good at working with everything that maybe they're on solid ground, even though they're a platform without a set of hardware. Let's come back to talk about Engine DJ and Serato. Engine DJ is the platform that's owned by the company called InMusic, which, if you remember, owns Newmark, Rain, and Denon DJ. I think they really have to develop that software platform so that it powers natively all of that equipment, and therefore that it is also a piece of laptop DJ software. I think they have to do that. It's something which has been accelerated by the fact that Alpha Theta, who owns Pioneer DJ and controls 70-80% of the hardware market, is actually trying to buy Serato, which we didn't mention when we went through the platforms then, because Serato has traditionally never had its own hardware. It has licensed its software to other people. Pioneer DJ and Alpha Theta has its own platform called Rekordbox. But what did I say? They control 70-80% of the hardware market, but only 50% or 45% of the software market. Why? Because a huge number of users of their hardware use Serato. And that is because Serato has traditionally had a huge user base, especially among scratch and hip hop and open format DJs. And Pioneer DJ, probably not wanting to, Alpha Theta, to give it its other name, still makes hardware to support that software because the users want it. They don't want to change. And so Pioneer DJ stroke Alpha Theta is trying to buy Serato, and they're struggling to do so because the monopolies commissions all around the world, pushed by the InMusic company that are seeing a problem for themselves, are being swayed by the argument that it's going to create a big monopoly, because that would mean that the Alpha Theta stroke Pioneer DJ company would control 80% of the software and hardware market, which can't be that good for DJing. So Serato is on rocky ground, because if Pioneer DJ buys it, I would imagine in the end that it gets folded in with Rekordbox. But Engine DJ has to become a platform in itself, in my view. I think if those two things happen, we might start to see the murky waters and the blurred vision of DJ software's future start to clear, not least for DJs themselves. And DJs do not want to stress about this. They do not. They are quite happy using platforms that just work for them and let them move past all of this, so that they can get on to what's really important. The way we teach DJing here at the Digital DJ Tips School is our 5 steps of DJing, which is gear, music, mixing, performing, and success. You need to move past gear. Gear is the geeky stuff. Gear is what hardware do I need to use? What software do I need to use? What do I need to understand to be a DJ, right? You need to move past that. People do not want to fret about this stuff. So I think there is change necessary. Fascinated to see what happens. So I was really keen to hear what you guys and girls say about this, because it is one of those areas that you have insights that I can only imagine, and I do love talking to the community about this. So let's do that now. Let's go and talk to you. And I knew that Mixmaster G, who is involved in the software world, would have a lot to say about this. So Mixmaster G on our live student chat, hello. He says DJ equipment is not on an island. While feature-wise, Denon DJ is leading, it loses in terms of reliability and ecosystem. Yes, and they don't like being told that over at that company, but it is true. So you might not have all the developments and all the fancy new toys when you go with the market dominant Pioneer DJ stroke Alpha Theta, but you do get the ecosystem and you do get the reliability. I totally agree with you there. David says, Phil, do you remember the Denon HD 2500? I do indeed. That was the beginning of Engine DJ software. It took them a long time to get this to work. The hardware had a built-in hard drive and you used the software to prepare the library on that hard drive. I do indeed remember that. I remember being demoed that at the Music Messer show in Frankfurt one year, a long time ago. Algorithm, this is the DJ platform that is very Apple-centric. It's one of the best written pieces of DJ software, by the way, Algorithm's software, DJ Pro. It's up there with the very best software I use in other areas of my life. They get it right. Algorithm's DJ Pro is still everyone's favorite second DJ platform, says Mixmaster G. I love what it does, but I know where the minefield called hardware support lays for them. Yes, they don't have a native hardware platform, and as I was saying, this is one of the issues. Apostolis says, I'm still a Traktor user. I've had my controller for almost 10 years and it's still in great shape. They might be very slow at updating their software and hardware, but I'm still staying with them for some of their USPs, including the great effects, the great looping, and the MIDI mapping capabilities. One important aspect that it's easy to overlook, adds Mixmaster G, is that the US market is mainly bring your own device. Whereas the European market, and especially the Dutch market, has always had fully equipped DJ booths. Now, this is slowly turning in the US, especially on the West Coast, which sees CDJ equipped DJ booths, which is one of the reasons why Serato is scaling back quickly in the US. Thank you very much. Virtual DJ stroke Atomics, says Tim, push all the other DJ software developers to be better. We wouldn't have the bells and whistles that are common today without them doing things like video and stems first in the way that they do. Thank you very much for sharing that, Tim, and I have to agree with you. I think competition is healthy for the industry, says Benedict. I still remember when DVS arrived and when I was blown away by that. Thank you very much. It's a fantastic set of comments here live on this recording. However, we do have to move on, people, from the strange world of DJ software to something totally you couldn't get more far removed. Let me take you right back to the very beginning of this segment when I said at the very beginning, pro DJs were using vinyl. Well, personally, in my DJing, I've actually gone full circle recently, because I have invested in 2 Stocchio Recordmate battery-powered portable turntables. They are based on an old Columbia GR3 design, which has been around since the 60s. Stocchio is a Japanese company that has updated them, put a decent cartridge on them, and changed the internals a bit, and basically made a really portable turntable that's got a basic pitch control on it. It's actually a pitch knob and it works off batteries and it's got a built-in speaker and it's really nice. They also made a little mixer to go with it, and you wouldn't see a more basic mixer. It's got 2 up faders for each of the turntables that you've got plugged in, and it's got a crossfader, and it's also got a volume control. It's also got a speaker built in. And the way you set up this system is you plug a lead from the headphones output from 2 of these turntables into this little mixer, and you plug your headphones into the mixer, and you plug your speakers into the mixer if you want to use a big speaker, which of course you do when you're DJing, and that's it. And this is the most charming thing. There isn't even a cue button. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're not actually a DJ, the way DJs listen to the thing that the audience isn't listening to is they press a button on their DJ mixer and it puts that thing through their headphones so they can get that record ready, right, to play next. It doesn't even have that. It just plays one turntable through the left hand earpiece of your headphones and one through the right hand. I mean, this is an utterly charming little battery DJ setup. And I've invested in this and I've started collecting 7-inch singles. And my whole thing now at home is I want to build a collection of maybe 300 or 400 of my favorite. I always wanted a jukebox. I always wanted one of those big 1950s jukeboxes at home where I could collect my all-time favorite singles, 7-inch singles, 45s, and have the jukebox play them. But I decided I wouldn't do that. I decided instead I would collect the singles, but I'd have a little battery-powered system that I could take out. I could literally take the records in one hand, the DJ system in the other, and sling a portable battery speaker over my shoulder and go off and DJ anywhere, right? That's what I decided I would do. So I've got this system and I'm collecting the singles at the moment. I've got to about 60. I'm having a lot of fun doing that. I could talk to you for hours about that. I'm doing it as a hobby because I don't want to go home and stare at a screen or sort out a music collection when I've been teaching it for, up to 12 hours a day here in the studio. I'm doing it as a hobby. I'm also doing it because I want to educate people, but I want to educate people locally. So my kind of thought is I can get out with my friend. I know lots of people who run little bars and cafes here. Just go and set the gear up there and play for an evening. And of course, it invites people to come and talk to you because they're like, what the hell is that you're doing? And so I can kind of educate people. It's a fun way to play out. And also, I have to be honest, It kind of scratches something that I'm sure a few people tuning into this podcast will feel, which I call the vinyl dad itch. There's something about reaching middle age when your kids are growing up and they've never experienced records and things like that that makes you want to give them that experience. So I've been collecting records and getting very excited, and my 12 and 13-year-old have been rolling their eyes as I've been saying, hey, look at this copy of the Specials Ghost Town I've managed to get on 7-inch, etc., etc. So that's why I'm doing this thing. But I want to share you some lessons I've learned about this, which are applicable to all DJs, and it's always nice to be reminded of some of these things. In my case, it's been nice to be reminded of them, and I'm going to share them with you. So here's 5 things I've learned, and bearing in mind I haven't actually played out on this gear yet. I haven't even bought that. I've ordered the flight case for it, but I haven't fitted everything into it yet, and I haven't got my collection big enough to be able to play anything like a proper DJ set. I've got 60 or 70 songs, which is not enough. I need 300 or 400. So I'm on the journey, but this is what I've learned so far. Number 1, records, physical records are absolutely fascinating. They're fascinating in a way that digital files cannot be. You hold a record and you have a sense of history, especially when you buy them secondhand, but even when you buy them new. But of course, I'm collecting 7-inch singles. I'm collecting old 45s. The whole point about this is it's going to be portable. They are utterly fascinating. It's like you're inviting a bit of history into your home. To see someone's name written in biro on the front of a cover and the year 72, I just think it's wonderful. You think, who was that person? Where were they when they bought this thing I've just got off a mail order record store online? And so I'm finding that the records themselves are utterly fascinating. Just looking at the typefaces on the labels and reading seeing the fonts and seeing the way they've been designed. And then, the thing that happened with 7-inch singles with 45s is they were always in paper sleeves, and then they started to get picture sleeves, and the picture sleeves became almost as important as the record that was in it. So I'm finding that fascinating. So even if you DJ digitally, I would really encourage you to maybe have a small record collection just for the hell of it. It connects you to the culture and the artist and the music in a way that's really, really tangible. And that even as someone who owned lots of records in years gone by, I'd forgotten how much I missed it. So I am loving it. The second thing it reminds you of is that the song is king. So it reminds you of this in 2 ways. Number 1, you're collecting 7 inches. You cannot really play albums on this kind of gear. You need to have very high quality turntables set up in an extremely, extremely good environment in order to be able to play, what used to be called 33s, LPs, albums, because the grooves are very close together. They tend to skip. Any bass in the venue will make them skip. You have to play singles. You have to play what, of course, became 12 inches in the club DJing days, which have got thicker grooves, which run faster, which aren't quite so susceptible to all the jogging and feedback and problems that you get with vinyl if you're playing long play records, as they used to be called. So it's all about singles. It's all about the song. It's all about having one song or 2 at the most, but one song normally on one side of one piece of vinyl. So the song is king. And what you realize is 2 things. 1, there's an awful lot of great songs out there from artists that you never hear of before or since, or from artists who you don't like anything else by. So in order to kind of pay respect to that, you're looking for individual songs. And so you can have a very, very interesting collection of 7-inch singles of 45s. I never know what to call them because some people call them one thing, some people call them another, which could be very different to your collection of your favorite artists or your favorite albums over the years and so on. So there's a different dynamic when you're collecting singles, but also the song is king because you really can't do an awful lot of mixing on 7-inch singles. Now, the best DJs, of course, make it a mission of theirs to scratch and mix well with little 7-inch singles, but trust me, you can't do that on battery-powered plastic turntables. You just have to be very simple in the way you mix. So it becomes all about the order you put them in and what you play, which is very nice. The third point, if you want to do this, which I do, if you want to take something that's deliberately retro, you don't have to go fully retro. You don't have to go fully Luddite. I mean, I'm not recording my DJ sets on a cassette player tucked underneath the desk like I used to, right? I'm fully embracing live streaming. I'm fully embracing Instagram to publicize this. I'm fully embracing recording it digitally and stuff like that as I go on. So look, I've deliberately chosen this because it fascinates me, but it doesn't mean that I'm throwing out everything. It doesn't mean that I'm trying to go back to the heyday of the 7-inch single in the 1970s. Far from it. And I'll tell you why I'm doing this again in a minute. But that wasn't the reason. So, I fully expect to have full-on technology with me helping me along. I'm probably going to use zero latency wireless speakers to power this whole thing. So I don't need to put wires everywhere and stuff. That's all new. The fourth thing I've realized, people love novelty. In this day and age where a DJ turns up with a plastic box that looks like everyone else's and flips open a laptop, people love to see you with real turntables, real vinyl, real things that spin. Everyone I show this to is utterly beguiled and fascinated by it. And so if you can think of something that brings novelty to your DJing, I'd say do it, go for it, because nowadays DJs are becoming so similar to each other that just making a decision like that and adding something that's unusual might just give you a cutting edge. Have a think about that. And the fifth lesson I've learned is that if you limit yourself, which obviously you can't get more limiting than I'm going to only play 7-inch singles on battery powered equipment, it can actually really inspire you. And it can really push you in directions that you wouldn't be pushed in. So in my case, it's inspired me to teach because people come up and say, wow, what are you doing? So I can explain DJing in a very simple way to them. It's inspired me to have a look at where I can do this different, because there's no point doing what I've just described in a DJ situation where you're playing to 5,000 people. I have a friend who runs big festivals here, and he said to me, why don't you come and DJ, warm up for one of those? And I thought about it, but then I thought, I'll just do that with a laptop. I'll do that with a controller. Why on earth would I want to risk playing on 7 inches when no one can actually see what I'm doing, right? So unless they had a camera on me on the big screens either side of the stage, there's no point. So, it's made me think, I want to do this in small venues. I want to do this in places where it's set up on a table and people can come and sit with me and look and talk. It's inspired me to spend my money wisely because there is actually a lot of cost involved here. So when I go and buy music, I'm thinking very hard about what I buy, which is quite healthy. It's kind of taking me back to the old days. And so the final thing I've realized is I can't get all the music I want to play anymore. So it's inspired me to dig a bit deeper for music. If I can't buy all the tracks I like nowadays, what songs exist in the past that remind me of that I can get on 7-inch single? So I guess the lessons here are DJ culture is fascinating outside and beyond what you do, right? So in this instance, it's records. Try digging your finger into different areas of DJ culture. There's good stuff to be found there. Never forget that songs are king. It's the individual records that matter, and that goes for the way you mix them as well. You don't have to go full, if you reject something in DJing, say, I do not want to use AI in DJing, right? Don't. Because there will be times when there's something it can help you with. So as DJing develops, I've rejected digital files from my hobby of DJing at home. It doesn't mean I reject all the other things that modern tech has brought. Same with anything that happens in DJing. Don't look at something new that happens in DJing and reject it all. Don't bundle it all together and say, as a point of honor, I'm not going to get involved with that, because there'll be something about that can help you. You don't ever underestimate novelty. And if you limit yourself, you might find it inspires you. And this is something that artists have always known. In my case, limiting myself to 7-inch singles has really inspired the way I DJ. So I just want to end off then this third and final segment, as we always do, by going across to you and seeing what you've got to say about this. I remember, says the Ruckus to Jack, buying the Queen 45. It was around 1977. Jack was saying that he bought a 7-inch single, which he still remembers, by Queen. And it's true, you do remember this stuff. It is something that never leaves you. My first 7-inch single was DISCO by Ottawan. It was on a pink label out of France called Carrère. And Jack's was indeed Queen's Another One Bites the Dust. The first 7-inch I got, says Mixmaster G, and I know you're over there in the Netherlands, was a Dutch artist, a comedian. And so there we go. Yeah, you know, our first 7-inches are normally something, and we all want to have a cool one, don't we? But it's quite often not true. Although quite ironic that DISCO was the first one I bought, considering the career that I ended up in. So yeah, there we go. And another comment on vinyl. Oh, Groove Genie Radio is saying, do you have a link to share? So over time on the Digital DJ Tips website, I will be sharing this journey. I'll be writing an article and making a video with all this equipment. So just keep an eye on there. Or if you're interested in seeing the equipment I was talking about now, go to the Stokio website, which is the word Tokyo with an S in front of it. And you'll see this gear over there. And this is a final comment or two from Mike, who says, I worked on hospital radio and on local radio using Technics turntables. I remember on the desk you pressed the cue button and then you queued up the song which you needed to do right. The music was so different to digital. It was indeed. And that's where we're going to leave it for today. I hope you enjoyed our topics today. I certainly enjoyed bringing them to you, and it was wonderful to have so much feedback, as always, of course, from our wonderful student community. Again, if you want to join in, just become a member. Go buy a course from the Digital DJ Tips courses page on our website, and you'll be invited to the recordings of these as part of the onboarding process for that. But look, whether you want to become a student or not, I hope you've enjoyed the podcast. And if you have, please give us a 5-star review, a thumbs up, or whatever's possible on the platform that you are listening to this on. Meanwhile, get good, get out there, make the moments, and I'll see you for another Digital DJ Tips podcast very soon.